The NFL draft has officially taken place. It is officially behind us. That means we can now talk about winners, losers, and all the fun stuff leaving the draft weekend. So let's just focus on the winners coming out of that draft, whether it's rookies, whether it's veterans. Let's talk about guys that either gained value or maintained their value in Dynasty. Let's start over at the quarterback position. And yes, I am a Bears fan, but Caleb Williams is a winner coming out of the NFL draft. The Bears offense, if you get rid of free agency, you get rid of Ben Johnson, and you just look at the draft, it got better. It improved in basically every single way, minus running back, most likely, it seems here. But you add Colston Loveland in the first, arguably the best tight end in the draft. Maybe you had Tyler Warren first, but he was 1 or 2. He is a pass-catching athletic tight end that the Bears have not had. Cole Kmet is good. I think he's a good player. Colston Loveland is a better weapon for a quarterback. Then you go to the second round, and I think what really shocked a lot of people, it absolutely shocked me, was grabbing Luther Burden in the second, another wide receiver to add to that room with Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Zacchaeus as well. So I think that was a shock and just brings another element of speed that this offense has been, kind of severely lacking the last couple of years, a playmaker that you can just kind of have in a gadgety type role potentially early on. So that's great too. And then you go out, you add a right tackle, maybe left tackle, depending how Trapilo actually ends up working out, but you improve the offensive line. And then you add day 3 offensive line depth. You add a flyer running back in the 7th. The offense is undoubtedly better today, Sunday when I'm recording this, as opposed to Thursday morning. And along those same lines, let's look at Bryce Young, because Bryce Young finally gets a real wide receiver 1. And maybe you can say, they've tried twice in Bryce Young's career, right? They drafted Jonathan Mingo. They drafted Xavier Legette in the first. And look, neither of those guys, in my opinion, panned out. I think everybody agrees Jonathan Mingo did not pan out. That's not news. That's not shocking anybody. And I think Tet McMillan at 8 is a drastic departure from what Bryce Young has been working with, right? It's not Adam Thielen, who is old, just kind of slowly fading down the stretch here of his career, but Tet McMillan is a true outside X wide receiver that he has not played with. They tried to get T. Higgins. They tried to, most likely, I assumed, add other high-profile wide receivers in free agency, and they missed on everybody, whether it was trade or free agency. So there was just this gaping hole in this offense of look, how do we actually get Bryce Young to take another step forward? Because he took a great step in year 2, and that is almost always either improve the offensive line, which they did last year, or give them a legitimate weapon on the outside, and they finally got there. Bryce Young is in a better spot today than he has ever been in his career right now. Now, going over to the running back position, Omarion Hampton is, to me, one of the biggest winners from this entire NFL draft. Whoever the Chargers drafted was going to land, obviously, in a favorable position for fantasy. Chargers, yes, like that offense as a whole, Harbaugh, Roman, they are going to get production out of the running back position. And a lot of people, myself included, thought, maybe they don't go and take a guy in the second because they signed Najee to a 1-year deal, so they have their placeholder. But the fact that they decided to make an effort to draft Hampton in round 2, I think speaks volumes to not only Najee Harris's value to them, which is, look, $5 million 1 year, that's a backup. And then you add a dynamic, big-bodied playmaker like Omarion Hampton, and I think it's just this, like week 4 or 5, right? They'll do the courtesy thing with Najee. You get first crack. We signed you. We told you we would do it. But look, it's going to be Hampton's job. If not by week 5, absolutely by the end of the season. And he'll be a top 10 running back if he's not already there in Dynasty. I mean, look, J.K. Dobbins last season was the RB18 in points per game. I like J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins is very good. But he was 25, coming off an injury, got hurt during the season again. They didn't re-sign him. It's not like they necessarily loved J.K. Dobbins, and he still was fantastic for fantasy. He has over a 10% target share, so we know the role is rock solid in an offense that wants to use a running back heavily, and it's going to be Hampton with Najee hopefully spelling him, for 4 yards a carry and just doing nothing else besides that. Aside from just rookie running backs, though, there's veterans that won here because they didn't get competition. And I think Washington, just the backfield as a whole, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, are undoubtedly winners because all offseason we heard, look, they need to add speed, they got to add juice, they got to add playmaking in the backfield. And Washington said, we're good with Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and a sprinkle of Debo in the backfield. That keeps Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler both as these RB3s with low upside, which, look, maybe it's not a ton of value, but this could have gone much, much worse for them. I mean, they both should be kind of on the chopping block of rosters. And that was my expectation coming into the draft, because how does Washington not continue to build around Jaden Daniels? But they opted to roll with these two guys. So we react, we adjust, and we say, okay, if I need players that are just going to touch the ball, both of these guys are cheap guys you can go and add in Dynasty, knowing, look, they are safe for 2025 at least. Sticking with the veteran RB, Jordan Mason, probably a name you didn't expect to hear on a video like this, but Jordan Mason wins. I mean, he now is the clear-cut RB1B, RB2 in Minnesota. And if you're thinking, well, Jordan Mason's on the 49ers. No, Jordan Mason was traded to the Vikings for pick 187 a few weeks back. And there was still the expectation, maybe they maneuver the draft, add picks, and turn their limited draft capital into some late round flyers, and they take a running back there. So that means now Jordan Mason not only was handpicked and traded for, he didn't get any competition. So, like I said, the RB1B in this offense, behind Aaron Jones, who has played 16-plus games 3 times in his career. Nobody's going to call him an Iron Man, although he's coming off of a 17-game season somehow at his age, and off of an extension now. So there's competing ideologies, right, on how Jordan Mason's going to be deployed if they're extending Aaron Jones. But I think, look, he's going to get work. He proved he is a useful running back when given workload. And I think he's a really good bet to get a lot of the goal line work. Even though I do love Aaron Jones and I will advocate trading for him, do not sleep on Jordan Mason and the sneaky uptick in value he's seeing post-draft here. Now, going over back to the rookie running backs, RJ Harvey is not somebody I anticipated talking about a ton post-draft. I thought maybe 3rd round, most likely a 4th round running back was just kind of where I thought he was headed. That is not the case. He gets drafted in the 2nd round, and not only in the 2nd, but to Denver, which I think all of us can agree is probably one of the best landing spots for a rookie running back. Look, this room is not talented. It's not good in any way, and RJ Harvey is handpicked by Sean Payton to solve that problem. Sean Payton, love him or hate him, he has conviction when he goes out and picks a guy, right? Bo Nix last year, he was making fun of everybody for the smokescreen about trading up for J.J. McCarthy. We laughed at him. Bo Nix turned out great. RJ Harvey very well could have a very similar style rookie season where he just exceeds expectations. And he goes from, a 3rd round, late 2nd rookie pick to probably an early 2nd just because of how this draft fell and the talent and the landing spots of other players around him. Now let's close it out with 3 wide receivers. First going over to Stefon Diggs. And look, Stefon Diggs is, I think, a clear-cut winner because he doesn't get high-end competition. They do take a wide receiver on day 2, right? They draft Kyle Williams in the 3rd, but I don't think anybody's looking at that and saying he got high-profile, high-upside competition. I think Kyle Williams is a winner in his own right because I think he's now probably the 2nd best wide receiver on this roster, but that's not saying a lot. Stefon Diggs should be the clear-cut one for Drake May. With very little behind him, I think that's going to push him for like a high target share. Stefon Diggs could pull in a 25 to 28% target share this year, and I would not bat an eye because they just didn't invest at the wide receiver position a ton. Where they did invest was obviously offensive line, which is a huge help for Drake May and Stefon Diggs, just by association, and then also Travion Henderson. So they get playmaking in the offense, but it's not on the outside. It's not going to really challenge what Stefon Diggs is going to do for that offense. So basically, you have, an end-of-career Stefon Diggs who's just going to, I think, leg out another really productive season with like wide receiver 2 upside in an up-and-coming offense. And sticking with the theme of wide receivers kind of on their last legs. I think Calvin Ridley is another guy who also ends up being a clear-cut winner here. At 30 years old, he gets one more crack to be the wide receiver one in an offense, like the guy. Because, look, Calvin Ridley now, hopefully, catching passes from Cam Ward on day one and not Will Levis, is competing with 2 day 3 wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, and everybody else that's just kind of there. Tyler Lockett's over the hill. Day 3 wide receivers are dart throws. Calvin Ridley should give you wide receiver 3 with upside. Now, the downside is he's catching passes from a rookie quarterback. It's not generally super fantasy friendly, but he has skill. He has minimal competition. There's not much else you can ask for from a 30-year-old wide receiver. And to close it out, let's talk about Tre Harris, who also lands with the Chargers, and I think lands in a very, very favorable position because, look, not only does he obviously get tied to Justin Herbert and this offense, but they have desperately needed a wide receiver too, right? Last year they hit on Ladd McConkey. He is obviously great. He's a good wide receiver. After him, it's a little bit of a question mark, right? Quentin Johnston looked way better in year 2, but he's not a high-level wide receiver. He doesn't carry the upside. It's not the coaching staff that drafted him, right? That was Staley and team. That's not Harbaugh. So them bringing in another one of their guys, I think is going to pretty quickly push Quentin Johnston down and give Tre Harris a chance to, I think, beat the profile that he has, because I don't think he has great chances of hitting after really digging into this whole process. But the draft capital and the landing spot are fantastic. So there's not much else he can ask for. I think he's been floating around that like mid to early second. I think he lives in that range still. But the upside and the landing spot really push up his potential, heading into year 1.